G'day YouTubers! I will preview this week's round of the 2024 AFL season. Before I start, it will be appreciated if you can subscribe, like and comment to my channel. Every subscriber will be much appreciated.
I'll summarise my round 10 tips. For the first game, I tipped Gold Coast to beat the Cats. Woohoo! The Suns smashed along by 10 plus goals. Got that right. The second game on Friday night, I tipped the Swans to beat the Blues. Woohoo! Got that right. The third game, I tipped the Magpies to beat the Crows. Yeah, 3 from 3. Then it gets pear-shaped. I tipped the Giants to beat the Bulldogs. Incorrect. The fifth game, I tipped the Saints to beat Freo. Damn it, got that wrong. So that's 3 from 5. I tipped the Lions to beat Richmond. That was easy. The Lions by 100 plus points. I tipped the Bombers to beat the Kangas. Essendon won pretty easily by 7 goals. I tipped the Power to beat the Hawks. The Power kicked the goal with less than 10 seconds to steal the game. And the final game, I tipped Melbourne to beat West Coast. Damn it, got that wrong. Overall, I got 6 out of 9 correct to take my tally for this season to 61 points. The first game of the week is between Western Bulldogs and the Sydney Swans, played on the Thursday. The players in the mix for the Bulldogs are Sanders, McNeil, Baker and Lobb. For the Swans, their players in the mix are Hammerling and Shelderick. The players injured for the Doggies are Waitman, Cotfield, Debba and Smith for all of 2025. For the Swans, they will be missing Mills, Corey Warner, Reid and McCartan. Last week, the Bulldogs beat GWS Giants. The Swans beat Carlton. Looking at the two teams' midfield, for the Bulldogs, you have the ruck midfield setup of English, Bontempelli, Chalor, Harms and Williams. For the Swannies, you got Grundy in ruck with Jordan, Rowbottom, Chad Warne and Gordon in the midfield. If we compare the two sides, you have English against Grundy. What a ruck contest. English, a young star, and Grundy, an All-Australian who's playing a lot better since his trade to Sydney. Then you have the midfielders, Bontempelli against Jordan. You expect Bont to win the chocolates for that. Chalor against Rowbottom. Chalor's a more inside-outside player. Rowbottom is also inside and an outside player. Harms with his power against the elite kicking Chad Warner. Williams with his outside skills against one of the best kicks ever in Gordon. What a midfield for both sides. I expect the midfield to be pretty even for both sides. If the Swans are even in the midfield, they're more likely to have more domination inside 50. The Swans have so much firing power in the forward line. You have McDonald, Amati, Papley, Will Haywood. Just so much scoring power. And I forgot Isaac Heaney, who's leading my Brownlow. Plays forward, kick goals, can also spend a bit of time on the ball. Based on this, I'm going to tip the Swans to win this game. The next game is between Fremantle and Collingwood, played on a Friday night out of the stadium. The players in the mix for the Dockers are Taberner, Simpson, Brody and Darcy. For the Magpies, their players in the mix are Dean, Johnson and Kruger. The players injured for the Dockers are Coxey, McDonald and Corbett. The players out for the Maggies are Eyre, Creedy, Elliott, Hoskin Elliott, McCready, Myercheck, Mitchell, Bartel and McStay. Last week, Fremantle beat St Kilda, whereas the Magpies beat the Crows in a close game within a goal. Looking at the ruck midfield setup for both sides, for the Dockers you have Darcy in ruck with Young, Sarong, Brayshaw and Fife as the midfielders. For the Magpies, you have Cameron in ruck with Dacos, Lipinski, Cripps and Pendlebury as their midfielders. If we compare the two, Darcy against Cameron, you expect Darcy to get the chocolates for that, or even when they rotate and play Jackson and ruck, we expect Fremantle to have the ascendancy in this position. We look at the midfield, Young against Dacos. Dacos inside outside elite kicking. Young has elite kicking, however Dacos is just elite. We've got Sarong or Freo against Lipinski. Sarong just runs all day, gets a lot of possession on the outside with his elite running, Lipinski is good in and under midfield. We expect Sarong to be on top in that position. Brayshaw and Cripps, both players are hard workers, can run all day. And you have Fife against Pendlebury, who went back in time and destroyed the Crows, kicking a couple goals in the first quarter. The midfield will be a vital position for both sides. Collingwood have so many injuries, and if Fremantle can even the midfield, they'll give their forwards an opportunity. Collingwood have so many players injured, and last week's match winner to Galway is under an injury cloud, and this will be a late fitness test. If he's injured, they've got less players up forward. Based on this, I'm going to tip Fremantle to win this game. The next game is between North Melbourne and Port Adelaide, played in Tasmania. Players in the mix for the Kangaroos are Phillips and Stevens. The players in the mix for the Power are Lord, potentially Captain Rosie, Clory and Sweet. The players injured for the Roos are Lowe, Goda and Coleman Jones. The Power will be missing Soldo, Jones, Narkle, Wines and Power Pepper. Last week, North Melbourne lost to Essendon to start the season winless still, whereas the Power beat Hawthorn by 1 point as they kicked 2 goals in the last 30 seconds to steal the game from the Hawks. If we compare the ruck midfield setup for both sides, for the Kangaroos you got Xeri in ruck with Davies, Giniaki, Machercha, Simpkin and Woodlaw as their midfielders, whereas the Power you have Sweet in ruck if he returns back from injury, and the midfielders are Butters, Horne-Francis, Drew and Rosie. I'm going to assume that Rosie will get picked this week, given that he's already had 2 weeks off and last week was a precaution, so I expect him to be back this week against the Kangaroos. Looking at the matchup, Xeri against Sweet, Xeri has more experience. We'll give Xeri the points against Sweet. However, it's a different story in the midfields. Davies Giniaki is a gun player against Butters, who came top 5 in last year's Brownlow and All-Australian. We expect Butters to win that position. Young Machercha against former number 1 draft pick Horne-Francis. Horne-Francis is starting to show why he was taken pick 1 by the Kangaroos 2 years ago. Captain Simpkin against Captain Rosie. I know who I'll pick to win that contest. Rosie. Solely plays inside, plays outside. Got that balance, moving left, right. And young Woodlaw against Drew. Woodlaw is a second-year player just finding his feet. Drew is a hard inside midfielder who finds play on ball and can also tag. I expect Power to dominate in the midfield and provide so many inside 50s to their forwards, where this will give so many opportunities for Georgiades, Dixon, Rioli to have a field day and keep playing goals. I expect the Power to win by 50 plus points. The next game is between Cowden and Gold Coast. The players in the mix for the Blues are Young and Cowan. For the Suns, their players in the mix are Ellis, Faha, Atkins and Buderick. The players injured for the Blues are Fogarty, Martin, Carroll, Motlop, Sard, Doherty and Savani. The players injured for the Suns are Roses Jr., Vella and Andrew. Last week, the Blues lost to Sydney and Gold Coast smashed Geelong by 60 points last week. If we compare the ruck midfield setup for both sides, for Cowden you have Pitnott in ruck with Cripps, Kennedy, Sarah and Walsh as the midfielders. For the Suns you have Vitz in ruck. Vitz didn't play last week but he's expected to play this week. And then you have the midfielders of Anderson, Rao, Miller and Flanders. Looking at the rucks, you expect Vitz to dominate with the headouts against Pitnott. The midfielders, you got the midfield ball of Cowden's Cripps against Rao. What a contested beast both players are. We'll give Cripps the chocolates as he's more experienced Brownlow medalist and is a gun player. Kennedy, another inside player against Anderson of the Suns. Anderson's got good elite kicking with his outside skills. Sarah from Cowden, outside against Took Miller, who's inside but can also play on the outside. And the elite running machine Walsh against Flanders, who also plays half back. It's an interesting midfield setup for both sides. I expect Cowden's midfielders to dominate in this position. If they find enough inside 50s, this will give plenty of opportunities for Kerner and McKay to score a lot of goals. Given that the game is played at Marble, at Cowden's home, I'm going to tip the Blues to win this game. The next game is between Geelong and GWS Giants. The players in the mix for the Cats are Marnham, Hardy and Clark. For the Giants, their players in the mix are Peatling, McMullen and Ralston. The players injured for the Cats are Dangerfield, Edwards, Wiltshire, Cameron and Hawkins. The players injured for the Giants are Cummings, Bruce, Kennedy, Leake, Brown to suspension, Alier and Aish. Last week, Geelong got smashed by Gold Coast in Darwin and the Giants lost to the Doggies at home. Both teams lost last week. Looking at the ruck midfield setup for both sides, for the Cats you have Big Cats in ruck with Holmes, Henry, Duncan and Clark in ruck. For the Giants you have Bricks in ruck with Coniglio, Kelly, Whitfield and Callaghan. Looking at the two, you expect Briggs to dominate over Big Cats and the midfielders of the Giants. They've got so much elite midfielders. Holmes is a young up-and-coming superstar for the Cats against Kelly, who just runs all day. Young Henry against Coniglio. Experienced Duncan against Whitfield. Young Clark against young Callaghan. I expect Callaghan to be a top 50 player in the next 5 years, or within the next 5 years. The Giants have more elite midfielders based on looking at this. However, obviously, games are not won on paper. Given that the game is played in Geelong, they rarely lose, and they lost their 17th game at home in Geelong in the last 15 years. I don't expect them to lose back-to-back home games, given they lost to Power 2 weeks ago on a Friday night. Due to the Giants also struggling, they've lost like 4 of their last 5 games. I'm going to tip the Cats to win this game at home. The game's played in Geelong, they rarely lose at home. The next game is between Richmond and Essendon. This one, my summary shouldn't be long, we know the conclusion on this result, or what we forecast. The players in the mix for the Tigers are Ryan and Kosicki. The players in the mix for the Bombers are Menzies, Shield and Ridley. The players injured for the Tigers, it's a long list but I won't name every player, are Taranto, Hopper, Graham, Maurice Rioli, Ross and Lynch, plus Gibcus for all of the season. That's up 2/3 of their midfield injured. Apparently Richmond only have 26 players to select for this week, so their squad is so thin at the moment. The players injured for the Bombers are Draper, Parrish, Ridley and Setterfield. If we compare the ruck midfield setup of both sides, in ruck for Richmond you have Nankervis with the midfielders of Pickett, Banks, Baker and Ralsmith. For the Bombers you got the experienced Goldstein in ruck with the midfielders of Stringer, Perkins, Merritt and Cardwell. If we compare the two, you say it's even between Goldstein and Nankervis. It's the midfield that's a lot big difference. Stringer with his power against Pickett, who's got speed. Then you got Perkins against young Banks, Merritt, who's an elite player, against Baker, and Caldwell in his 6th year against young Ralph Smith. Richmond's midfield is so much inexperienced. I expect the Bombers to dominate in this position and therefore allow their forwards like Langford and Peter Wright to have so many scoring opportunities. Based on this, I'm expecting the Bombers to win by 10 plus goals. Richmond are just so much decimated with so much injuries. The next game is between Hawthorn and the Brisbane Lions. The players in the mix for the Hawks are Ward, Wingard and Brown. The players in the mix for the Lions are Jared Lyons, Pryor, Fort and Robinson. The players injured for the Hawks are Ganga Paras, Lewis, Cabe, Blunt and Butler. The players injured for Lions are Bailey, Ainsworth, Starcevich, Gardner, McCarthy, Common, Dode and Ashcroft. Last week, the Hawks lost to the Power. They were leading by 28 points at 3/4 time. They scored 1 point in the last squad and they lost to the Power by a point. The Lions smashed Richmond by 119 points. Looking at the ruck midfield setup for both sides, for the Hawks you have Beacon ruck with the midfields of Newcombe, Weddle, Warpel and McKenzie. For the Lions you got McInerney in ruck with McCluggage, Neal, Dunkley and Berry as the midfielders. Looking at the matchup, McInerney against Meek, you give that even to both players. The difference is the midfielders. For the Hawks, you got Newcombe against McCluggage, North Australian, elite player. Weddle against Neil. Neil's a 2-time Brownlow medalist, elite, great inside player. Warple against Dunkley, Premiership player for the Bulldogs in 2016. Young Mackenzie against Jared Berry, who's been in the system for 8 years, good midfielder. The Lions have experienced players in the midfield. I expect the Lions to dominate the midfield. Last week, Hawthorn did so good against Power, excluding the last 5 minutes of the game, or the entire last squad. The Lions did what they needed to do and beat Richmond. This was a hard one to guess. The Lions, apart from beating Richmond by over 100 points, and this one is going to be a very tough game to pick. Brisbane with so many injuries and so many young players. However, Hawthorn's lost last week. I'm not sure if the young players can recover after dominating the Power for 3 quarters. I'm going to pick the Lions to win this game. The next game is between Melbourne and St Kilda. The players in the mix for the Demons are Hunter and Tomlinson. The players in the mix for the Saints are Haynes, Sharman and Brad Crouch. The players injured for the D's are Melksham, Turner, Spargo, Hoare, Lever and Randroyan. For the Saints, Butler is injured. Last week, Melbourne lost to West Coast and St Kilda lost to Fremantle. Both sides lost to the 2 WA teams last week. Looking at the ruck midfield table for both sides, for the D's you have Gordon ruck with Oliver, Winey, Petrarca and Sparrow as the midfielders. For the Saints you have Marshall ruck with Ross, Hill, Steele and Rindenhager as the midfielders. If we compare the two, Gordon against Marshall, both elite ruckmans. Gordon's doing so good, we just give the chocolates to Gordon. The midfield, there's a class difference. You got the power Petrarca against the speedy Hill. You expect Petrarca to dominate that position, Oliver to dominate over Ross, Jack Winey to even Steele, both contested inside midfields, and Sparrow and Rindenhager, both players to even in that position. The Demons have so much class in the midfields, so many All-Australians. However, the Demons are missing a number of players up forward. No Turner, no Van Rooyen. Therefore, they'll be relying a lot on Bailey Fritz to kick a lot of goals. And Pickett, last week was McAdams' first game for the club. There'll be the 3 players that the D's will be relying on to score the goals. Having said all that, and Melbourne's shortfall up forward, I'm still going to tip the Demons to win this game. The last game of the week is between the LA Crows and West Coast Eagles. The players in the mix for the Crows are Schoenberg, Berry, Gallant and Borlace. The players in the mix for the Eagles are Gaff, Cully and H. Edwards. The players injured for the Crows are Rankin, Philthorpe, Worrell, Pedler, Parnell, Sloan, Miller and Murray. The players injured for the Eagles are Captain Allen, Yeo, Flynn, Hewitt, Petrocelli. Last week, the Crows lost to the Magpies in an Albona, and the Eagles easily beat the Demons by 35 points. If we compare the ruck midfield table for both sides, for the Crows you have O'Brien in ruck with Dawson, Crouch, Laird and Saligo as their midfielders. For the Eagles you have Bailey Williams in ruck with Kimby, Kelly, Williams and Chester as the midfielders. If we compare the ruck, O'Brien should win the hitouts. However, his stats in hitouts to advantage doesn't reflect to what his hitouts ones are. Then you got elite kicker Dawson against Gimby. Gimby's a good young player. You expect Dawson, who was All-Australian last year, to dominate that position against Gimby. Crouch against Kelly. Kelly will run ragged with his elite speed and power from the stoppages. Laird, an experienced player against Williams. And Silico, an up-and-coming star against Chester. West Coast have lots of young players in the midfield compared to the Crows, who have experienced players. However, when the Eagles do mix Harley Reid in the midfield, that changes the setup. I wouldn't be surprised if Harley Reid fends off Crouch and Laird with his power and kick another goal from the centre bounce. Because the West Coast is a young team and they're still learning how to travel away from home, and the Crows had a bad loss last week where they blew the game at the end. They took the lead with 7 minutes and then they didn't score again for the last remaining 7 minutes. Given that the game is played in Adelaide, I expect the Crows to win at home. Therefore, I'm going to tip the Crows. My summary for this week's tips are: on the Thursday night, I'm going to tip the Doggies. That's an error. I've changed that. I'm going to tip the Swans to beat the Bulldogs. The Swans have only lost one game, and that was against Richmond. Who could believe that? The second game, on Friday night, I'll tip Freo to beat Collingwood. The Power to smash the Kangaroos. The fourth game will be an interesting game. I expect Carlton to beat the Suns. The fifth game in Geelong, I'll tip the Cats to beat GWS. Given that the game is played at Geelong, they rarely lose at home. They've only lost 17 games at that ground in the last 15 years. The Dreamtime game, I expect Essendon to wallop Richmond by 60 plus points. The game on Sunday, for the Lions to beat the Hawks and the D's to beat the Saints, plus the final late game in Adelaide. I'm going to tip the Crows to beat the Eagles. Good luck with all your tips. Thank you for watching my video. Please subscribe, comment and like. Every subscribe will be much appreciated. Good luck with all your tips.